$1 in a desert. The silver dollar clinked against the warped oak of the saloon table, sharp as a shot in the hush. Boots scraped. Card stilled. Even the whiskey in half-raised glasses seemed to wait. The barkeep spat into a rag, squinting at the man who'd laid down that coin. His hand shook as though the weight of it burned. Ezekiel Cross didn't blink. His eyes, gray, weathered, rimmed with dust, stayed on the sheriff's hand. The sheriff had the ledger open, his finger tapping against a single line written in scrawl. One Apache girl. Fit. $20 starting bid. The sheriff leaned back, chair creaking, lips curling with the grin of a man who thought he held the world. That it? You planted something, old man. The room chuckled low, like the desert wind before a storm. Ezekiel's hand stayed steady. That's it. A murmur stirred through the crowd. Cowhands, drifters, bounty men smelling of gun oil. The coin shone dully in the lamplight, the last glimmer of a man who had nothing else. The sheriff snorted. $1 against 20? Hell, you insult me. You insult this town. Behind him, in the shadows near the jail door, the girl shifted. Chains clinked. The crowd's jeers fell away as her face emerged into lamplight. High cheekbones, black hair bound with rawhide, eyes sharp as obsidian. She stood barefoot, bruises purple along her wrists, but her spine unbent. Ezekiel turned, and their eyes locked. For a heartbeat, silence crushed the room. She spat at him across the floor. The sheriff barked laughter. See? She don't want you. Nobody wants you. What do you want with her, old man? You can't feed yourself, let alone. The saloon doors rattled as the desert wind shoved through. Dust swirled across the floorboards, curling around Ezekiel's boots. His voice came low, a rasp worn by years of dry air and lost nights. No one belongs in chains. The chuckles faltered. A chair scraped back. Someone muttered, "Crazy fool." The sheriff's grin slipped. He tapped the ledger again. That dollar buys you nothing. Nothing but trouble. Ezekiel nudged the coin forward. It spun once, catching firelight. Trouble's all I got left to pay. The barkeep crossed himself. For a long breath, the sheriff studied him, jaw twitching. Then he slammed the ledger shut. Fine. You bought yourself a curse. The key turned with a metallic snap. The girl was shoved forward, chains uncoiling like snakes. She stumbled but caught herself, standing tall again. Ezekiel stepped aside, letting her come. She didn't move. The room leaned forward, breathless for the spectacle. Slow as sunrise, he drew a small knife from his belt, not to threaten, but to cut the iron clasp. Metal fell heavy against wood. Her wrists bled in half circles where the chains had eaten her skin. She pulled free, rubbing raw flesh, and raised her chin. The crowd muttered, "He's mad. She'll slit him for Dawn. Apache witch." The sheriff leaned back, watching with wolfish eyes. "You walk out that door, Cross. You don't walk back. She ain't yours. She's death." Ezekiel met his stare. "Then death'll ride with me." The girl moved first, brushing past him. She didn't thank him, didn't even glance. She strode straight into the desert night, her shadow long in the lantern glow. Ezekiel followed. The saloon door creaked shut behind them. The street lay quiet under the moon, dust drifting like ghost breath. Wagons creaked in the distance. Somewhere a dog barked, silence quick. She stopped at the edge of the road, arms crossed, watching him. Her voice cut through the stillness, sharp, accented, but clear. "Why?" He tightened the cinch on his horse before answering. "Because I could." Her eyes narrowed. "I am no man's." He swung into the saddle, the motion stiff, pained. "Then be your own. Ride or walk. Makes no matter to me." For a long beat, she stood, hair whipping in the desert wind, eyes burning. Then, with sudden grace, she vaulted onto the horse behind him. They rode out of town, hooves drumming the packed earth. The lamplight faded. Darkness opened its arms. Behind them, in the saloon, men whispered. The sheriff poured himself another drink. "That old fool just signed his death paper," he muttered. His deputies grinned, already hungry for the chase. Out in the desert, the night spread wide. The land stretched endless, mesquite shadows, jagged ridges, the hush of coyotes waiting for the week. Ezekiel's breath came slow, every rib aching from years of wear. The girl's silence pressed against his back. Somewhere in the darkness, a hawk screamed, and the old storyteller's voice would later say, "That was the night the desert took sides. The night his silver dollar bought not a woman, nor a slave, but a spark of freedom that would burn hotter than gunfire." Trails of fire and ash. The horse stumbled on loose stone, and the girl's hand shot out, gripping Ezekiel's coat. He didn't look back. "Hold steady." The moon bled pale across the canyon walls. Wind cut sharp through the silence. Behind them, faint as breath, came the echo of hooves. She heard it too. Her nails pressed through the fabric, a warning without words. Ezekiel pulled the reins, guiding the animal off the open trail, down into a gulch where shadow drowned the sand. They slid from his saddle, boots sinking soft in dust. The girl crouched, head low, scanning the ridge. Eyes like a hawk's, dark and unblinking. Ezekiel pressed his palm flat to the earth. Tremor of pursuit carried through stone. "Riders," he muttered. The girl's lips barely moved. "How many?" "Enough." A coyote wailed from the north. The echo swallowed itself in the cliffs. The hooves drew nearer, iron on rock. She pulled a knife from her boot, blade glinting faint. Ezekiel saw it, and for the first time since the saloon, his mouth twitched toward a grim smile. They waited. Hooves thundered overhead. Dark shapes cut against the stars, 3, 4, maybe 5. Voices carried low, the sheriff's men calling to each other. "Ain't far. Old fool rides slower than dust." Apache girl's worth more than the dollar he threw. "She's worth blood." The girl's jaw set hard. Ezekiel's hand found the butt of his revolver, heavy at his hip. They passed. Dust rained down. Silence dropped again. Ezekiel exhaled, long and steady. "We keep moving." The girl didn't sheath her blade. She kept it ready, gleaming like a shard of moon. By dawn, the desert burned. The sky split open with heat, the horizon wavering. The horse's flanks dripped with sweat, and Ezekiel's shirt clung damp to his back. The girl walked now, her bare feet soundless across sand and stone. She didn't complain, didn't falter. When she stumbled, she rose again, eyes fixed forward. At a dry creek bed, Ezekiel dismounted. He uncorked his canteen, tilting it toward her. She took it without thanks, drank once, then handed it back. Her voice came raw. "You carry scars." He looked down at his arm, the faded puckers of old wounds. "Yes." "From which side?" He capped the canteen, tied it to his belt. "Both." Her stare lingered, hard as flint. "You fought my people." He didn't flinch. "And lost mine." The wind hissed through brittle sage. She studied him, then turned away, crouching to trace a shape in the dirt. 2 stick figures, one small, one tall. Her finger pressed hard, then swept across, erasing both. Ezekiel's throat worked dry. He shifted, pulling a small leather pouch from his coat. Inside lay a wooden horse, whittled rough, edges worn smooth. He set it in the dust between them. The girl's eyes flicked down, then back up. Something unreadable moved there. Anger, sorrow, or both. She stood, leaving the toy where it lay. That night, firelight licked against canyon stone. The girl crouched on the far side, silent. Ezekiel sat with his back to rock, revolver laid across his knees. An owl called from high above. The horse shifted restlessly. The girl spoke, sudden sharp. "Why do you not sleep?" "Because they don't." He nodded toward the ridges. Her gaze followed. A flicker of flame blinked there, distant, hidden, but burning. "They follow," she whispered. "They'll come when the dark is thick enough." She rose, stepped in a shadow, gone without sound. Ezekiel's heart thudded. His hand tightened on the revolver. Then, a hiss of steel. A cry cut short. Another. She emerged again, dragging a man's rifle, blood dripping from her blade. 2 more riders stormed down the slope, guns barking. Muzzle flash lit the rocks. Ezekiel rolled, fired once, twice. 1 man fell screaming. The other reined back, horse screaming under him. The girl lunged, knife flashing. The man toppled from the saddle, throat spilling dark across the sand. Silence slammed down. Only the crackle of fire remained. Ezekiel staggered to his feet, smoke curling from his revolver. He stared at her, The way she wiped her blade clean on the dead man's coat. The way her breath came steady, unshaken. "You fight," he rasped. She looked at him, eyes hard. "I survive." The words hung heavy in the night air. At dawn, vultures circled low. The bodies lay cooling in the gulch, stripped of guns and water. Ezekiel stood, bandaging a scrape along his arm, watching the sky. The girl sat nearby, cleaning her knife with calm patience. He spoke, voice raw. "They won't stop." "No," she said. He looked at her then, the set of her shoulders, the fire that did not dim. For the first time, he saw not a prisoner, not a curse, but a warrior. She met his gaze without fear. "You carry death," she said. His jaw clenched. "So do you." The wind shifted. Dust rose, curling between them. The chase was not over, and the desert kept its silence, as if listening for the next gunshot. The blood moon showdown. Wind howled through broken windows, rattling loose shutters. Ezekiel crouched inside the empty saloon, breath shallow, revolver heavy in his hand. The girl moved like smoke across the floorboards, bow strung, arrow poised. Hooves thundered down the canyon. Lanterns bobbed, shadows spilling long against the walls of the ghost town. The sheriff's riders had come. "Cross." The voice split the night, cruel and certain. "Bring her out, and maybe we let you crawl away." Ezekiel slid a chair against the door, eyes on the cracks where dust fell in thin lines. His voice came low. "They'll rush us." The girl's gaze burned steady. "Then we cut them." A whistle pierced the air. The attack began. Riders surged into the square, rifles blazing. Bullets tore through the saloon walls, splinters raining across Ezekiel's face. He dropped flat, firing back. One rider toppled, screaming into the dirt. The girl loosed her arrow. It flew silent, swift, sinking into a throat. The man collapsed without a sound. Windows shattered. The saloon groaned as if the whole town remembered its dead. Ezekiel shoved a table onto its side, ducked behind it as another volley ripped through. Powder smoke choked the air. He peered out, eyes narrowing. Their fanning left. She was already moving. Bare feet slapped against the floorboards as she slipped through a side door, vanishing into shadow. Gunfire roared. A man burst in, shotgun raised. Ezekiel swung his revolver, fired point blank. The blast flung the man back, body colliding with the wall. Blood smeared across peeling paint. From outside came a cry, then silence. The girl returned, blade dripping. Her chest heaved, but her eyes shone fierce. Ezekiel grunted. "You keep count." She tilted her head. "Enough left." The sheriff's voice rose again. "You think you'll die a hero, Cross? You'll die a fool with a knife in your back." The girl whispered, "He fears." Ezekiel's hand shook as he reloaded, blood seeping from his side where a splinter of lead had grazed. He clenched his teeth, forced his hand steady. Hoofs circled. Flames sparked at the far end of town. Torches hurled into the ruins. Fire licked at the dry wood, growing fast. The girl's nostrils flared. "They burn us out." Ezekiel's jaw hardened. "Then we burn them first." He pushed through the back door, limping, clutching his side. She followed, crouched low. Together, they darted into an alley between sagging shacks. The riders swept in from both ends, torches blazing. Ezekiel dropped to one knee, drew quick, and shot the torch clean from a man's hand. Flames exploded against his horse, and beast and rider went screaming into the night. The girl darted forward, knife flashing, carving down another as he wheeled too close. She didn't pause, didn't falter. Blood streaked across her face, bright in the firelight. Gunfire cracked. Ezekiel staggered, a bullet grazing his arm. He fired back, his aim precise despite the pain. Another man crumpled, spilling into the dirt. Then silence. A heavy pause before the last rider dismounted. Spurs jingled. The sheriff stepped into the square, rifle in hand, hat low. Firelight painted him red. "Cross," he called, voice cold. "You spent your last dollar on a savage. You spent your life on nothing." Ezekiel stood tall, though blood darkened his shirt. He holstered his revolver slow, deliberate. "I spent it on freedom." The sheriff chuckled dark. "Then freedom dies with you." He raised his rifle. Ezekiel's hand hovered over his holster. The girl froze, watching. The fire hissed, the wind stilled. The square fell silent, every shadow holding its breath. The sheriff's finger curled on the trigger. Ezekiel moved. His revolver cleared leather in a single blur. One shot cracked, echoing against canyon walls. The sheriff jerked, staggered, eyes wide, mouth open as if to curse. The rifle slipped from his hands. He dropped to his knees, then toppled face first into the dirt. Smoke curled from Ezekiel's gun barrel. The girl let out a breath she hadn't known she held. Around them, the flames crackled, dying low as if the desert itself had chosen sides. Ezekiel's knees buckled. He caught himself against a beam, breath ragged, blood soaking his side. His revolver clattered to the ground. The girl was at his side in an instant, catching his arm, steadying him. Still breathing, he rasped. Still fighting, she answered. The square lay silent, bodies scattered, firelight flickering on the empty windows of the ghost town. The sheriff's men were gone. Only death remained. Ezekiel closed his eyes, the night spinning. The girl's voice anchored him, fierce and certain. "We are not done." Whispers of freedom. Ezekiel sagged against the beam, blood soaking his shirt, the revolver lying forgotten in the dirt. The girl tore strips from her own garment, pressing them to his side. He grunted, teeth clenched, sweat slick on his brow. "Hold," she said, voice low, steady as stone. His breath rattled. "You patch me with rags?" She pressed harder, unflinching. "You bleed, you live. You stop, you die." The fire crackled nearby, embers drifting like restless spirits. The town stood hollow, every shadow filled with silence. Ezekiel's hand trembled, reaching for the toy horse that had fallen from his coat. His fingers brushed it, weak. The girl caught it first, turned in her hand. She studied the worn edges, the shape carved with care, then set it back in his palm. Her voice softened, almost a whisper. "Grandfather." His eyes opened, cloudy but fierce. "Not yours." Her gaze did not waver. "Respect." The word hung between them, heavier than the gunfire that had come before. He drew a shallow breath, pain dragging at his ribs. "Respect. I'll take." By dawn, smoke curled thin from dying embers. The bodies lay where they'd fallen, picked over by the circling vultures. Ezekiel leaned on the girl's shoulder as they crossed the square. Every step tore at him, but he moved, jaw set. She bore his weight without falter, eyes fixed ahead. The sheriff's rifle lay in the dust, its barrel glinting red in the sunrise. The girl kicked it aside. Neither of them looked back. They mounted the horse together, his arm clinging weak around her waist. The desert opened wide, endless and waiting. Years later, voices still carried the tale. By firelight, old men spoke of a soldier who spent his last dollar not on food, nor drink, nor cards, but on an Apache girl. Children leaned close as the story wound on, of chains cut, of riders fallen, of a ghost town where fire lit the sky red as blood. Some said the girl became a leader among her people, fierce and unbending. Some said the old soldier rode with her until his breath gave out beneath the desert stars. And some swore that if you listened close, on nights when the wind whistled through canyon stone, you could hear two voices riding together still, one rough, weary drawl, the other young and bright. Whispers of freedom, carried forever on the desert wind.